Welcome to SVG-TV News for Tuesday, March 3rd, 2026. I'm Rochelle Batiste with the details. St. Vincent and the Grenadines will not be spared from the impacts of the ongoing turmoil in the Middle East. At a news conference today, Prime Minister Dr. Godwin Friday said the government must prepare in advance as it responds to potential economic shocks facing the country. We hear more in this report.
The high likelihood of experiencing severe energy and fuel cost shocks over the next 12 months. Of course, it all depends on how this conflict plays out.
Prime Minister Dr. Godwin Friday made a statement at a news conference today where he addressed the impact SVG could face from the war in the Middle East. The Prime Minister noted that rising energy and fuel costs will affect various sectors, including travel, directly impacting the country's tourism industry.
We anticipate that there's a risk of a downturn, especially in the long-haul arrivals, and also occupancy rates would be affected, and it is a matter that we have to be very alert to, and we are studying it and figuring out what we can do to mitigate against it.
The risk of imported inflation and the resultant increase in the cost of living is another issue that Prime Minister Friday acknowledged must be addressed.
Monitor this very carefully for the early warning indicators to see to what extent. You look at freight and insurance quotes and so forth, supermarket tracking goods to see to what extent they are moving.
The Prime Minister noted that his government has already implemented initiatives to cushion the impact of rising living costs, but they will now have to go back to the drawing board to determine what additional measures can be introduced.
Aware that scarcity may be a problem. There are certain things we may not be able to get, especially in building and construction, oil and supplies and so forth. These are things that, as a responsible government, the potential fallout from this conflict. As I say, even though we are not directly involved in it, the whole world is connected now with so much of trade that we have to ensure that we're alert to the possibilities and that we take measures to mitigate them.
For SVG-TV News, Larissa Pugsley-Kidd.
And Minister of Foreign Affairs, Foreign Trade and Diaspora Affairs, Dwight Fitzgerald Bramble, says the ministry continues to closely monitor the ongoing situation in the Middle East. Minister Bramble explained that since St. Vincent and the Grenadines does not have an embassy in the Middle East, the government is liaising with another CARICOM country to determine the best way to make arrangements for Vincentians residing in that region.
A diplomatic presence over there. So what we're doing, we are currently in discussions with one of our CARICOM colleagues. The country I don't want to name just yet because we don't know how that's going to pan out. But we're having discussions with one of our CARICOM member states who has a diplomatic presence in the Gulf to see if we can get them to help us with the diplomatic requirements and demands to address the needs of our citizens in the Gulf region. So as that unfolds, and hopefully we'll be able to come to some agreement with our CARICOM neighbor with the diplomatic presence there in the Gulf region.
In a statement issued yesterday, the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines expressed deep concern for all persons affected by the escalation of violence in the Middle East. The government also called on all parties involved in the hostilities to de-escalate tensions and return to the negotiating table to resume dialogue. The housing program launched in the aftermath of Hurricane Beryl is ongoing, according to Minister of Urban Development Nigel Stevenson. Speaking at a recent West St. George constituency meeting, Minister Stevenson dismissed claims that the program had been discontinued. He stated that the new administration has resumed its quarterly distribution of building materials to support affected residents.
Go back to the days of the New Democratic Party. Materials were stopped every quarter. Yes. Every quarter. So those persons who needed help could have gotten the help all year round. We are going back to the foundation of the New Democratic Party. So election materials is a thing of the past. We will bring materials according to the needs of the people of our country.
Minister Stevenson added that individuals requiring assistance for housing development will continue to receive support. However, he noted that assessors in the respective constituencies must first conduct the necessary evaluations before aid is granted.
Is the assessor in your community, in your constituency. We're going to have this program to look at the general housing needs of our country. So if you are not affected by Hurricane Beryl and you're in dire need of assistance to get your houses repaired, we have a program to deal with that.
Now we hear that activities for National Heritage and Heroes Month kicked off last Sunday with a heritage market and prayer rally at the Chateau National Park held under the theme Appreciating Our Identity, Preserving Our Heritage with Pride. The rally brought together government officials, members of the clergy, cultural performers, artisans, vendors, families, and youth in a celebration of ancient culture and heritage. Delivering remarks, Minister of State in the Office of the Prime Minister, Chieftain Neptune, reflected on Psalms 27:1, declaring that the courage of the nation's ancestors, particularly national hero, the Right Excellency Joseph Chartier, remains a beacon of resilience and strength for the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
So that today, our theme, appreciating our identity and preserving our heritage with pride. Let it resonate deeply within all of us, inspiring pride and togetherness. It calls for us to reflect deeply on our identity, who we are, where we come from, and where we are going. Additionally, it emphasizes the importance of the legacy entrusted to each and every one of us, urging us to consider how we can uphold and pass it on to the next generation with greater responsibility and purpose.
Minister of Youth, Sports, Culture and Creative Industries, Kashaka Cupid, emphasized that cultural preservation is foundational to national development. He reminded attendees that Chartier's resistance was not merely a territorial, but a defense of identity, dignity and heritage values that must continue to define the Vincentian spirit.
Heritage is not something we inherit once and forget. It is something we actively preserve. As Minister of Culture, I believe strongly that our cultural preservation is national development. When we empower our indigenous communities, when we protect our historical sites, when we promote our traditional arts and crafts, when we document and teach our history, we are strengthening the soul of our nation.
The event also heard an address from Area Representative and Minister of Social Welfare, Community Empowerment, Ecclesiastical Affairs and National Heritage, Chevron John, who described the rally as more than an event, calling it a declaration of renewal. Minister of Agriculture, Forestry and Rural Transformation, Israel Bruce, has encouraged the 11 farmers who benefited from the distribution of the first batch of pedigree weaner lambs to care for the animals responsibly and with a production-focused mindset, noting that their efforts will contribute to increase national output and strengthen food security. The minister made the remarks during the recent handover ceremony held at the Dunbarton Agricultural Station.
I was excited to hear the Deputy Chief Agricultural Officer say that these animals, in terms of their meat production, it enhances. And so for those of you who ultimately down the road would have your animals to pass on meat to the persons who wish to have meat, you know that you're going to get greater yield on the animal that you're taking care of, which means that the return on your investment on these weaners will be far more outstanding than the hitherto were with the others. So keep that in mind. And you also heard that in the past, what has happened is that the project has seen cattle, rabbits, goats that were also part of the distribution program, and pigs. So essentially what is happening is that the pedigree of livestock across the country is given an opportunity for an improvement.
The pedigree weaner lambs distributed to the farmers by the Ministry of Agriculture form part of the Unleashing the Blue Economy of the Caribbean UBEC Continuing Emergency Response Component CERT Food Insecurity Project in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The project is being implemented by the Economic Planning Division within the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning with technical support and coordination from the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry and Rural Transformation. It is financed through a loan provided by the World Bank. The Center for Enterprise Development, Inc. CED, successfully concluded its 3-day climate change adaptation workshop today, equipping members of community groups and organizations across the country with practical tools to address climate risk. The workshop, held under the Unlocking Opportunities Through Climate Change Initiatives, the OCCI project that is funded by the Organization of American States, the OAS, ran from the 24th to the 26th of February at the SVG Teachers Cooperative Credit Union Conference Room. The workshop was designed to strengthen local climate preparedness by increasing awareness of climate risk and promoting climate smart practices. In her closing remarks, Keisha Phillips, Training and Education Coordinator of CED and the UNIC Project Coordinator, encouraged participants to immediately apply their new knowledge. She urged them to take the practical skills gained during the workshop and begin implementing them in their day-to-day practices, programs, and planning. The CED said the workshop was well received, with multiple participants expressing their gratitude for the training. Farmer Mary Jackson, represented Women in Agriculture for Rural Development, shared her appreciation for facilitator Nyasha Antroba's Cyrus Jackson, whom she said brought out the best in the participants.
Those of us who had fears, I believe the fears are gone, and we learned a lot. It was very educational, especially for me as a farmer. Things that I need to practice on the farm in order to keep our community safe, and not only just our community but St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We learned so much about our environment and how we need to take care of Mother Earth, so Mother Earth could take care of us. That is what's mentioned.
Another participant, Janelle King of Imagination, shared that the workshop exceeded her expectations.
Came for the knowledge, but I did not realize how personal it would be to me, having been somebody who experienced a natural disaster and now understanding the linkage between climate change and natural disaster. So for me, today, I'm not only leaving prepared for the future, but understanding that climate change is occurring everywhere, in every sector, in every homes, and we need to understand the linkage so we can be better prepared. And I'm now leaving here better prepared and fearless.
A number of workshops are scheduled for this year under the UOCCI project, among them risk management for MSME scheduled for the 9th to the 10th of March, innovation and technology in climate change the 8th to the 10th of April, and the community program for entrepreneurship development workshop the 16th to the 20th of March in Mariquar and the 23rd to the 27th of March in Georgetown.